Wasn't there some speculation that she was on Epstein's yacht at one point in time?
It began, at least according to circulating reports, with a phone call no one expected.
There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew way back in the day when she was like in her early 20s. Wow.
Multiple entertainment outlets suggested that Meghan Markle had personally reached out to someone connected to Joe Rogan's production team in California.
That's the big distraction.
Allegedly over a late-night episode that mentioned her name. The details of what happened during that supposed call have never been clear. Some say it was a polite request. Others describe something closer to a warning.
Probably makes sense because, I don't know that he's the sharpest tool in the box.
What's certain is that the rumor caught fire faster than anyone anticipated. Within hours, commentators were debating whether it could have happened at all. There were no statements from either side, no official denials, and no confirmations. Only whispers, speculation, and fragments of supposed insider knowledge that fed an already polarized public. For Meghan, whose public image has long balanced poise and controversy, it was familiar territory. For Rogan, whose career thrives on open debate, it was new fuel for a global audience always hungry for the next media collision.
% of people in England and Wales have a UK passport. Okay.
I've got a UK passport.
Do you?
Yeah, I'm a dual citizen, so.
Look at you.
Yeah, I know,
How's
right?
that work?
The alleged reason behind the call, according to those same reports, was irritation over a segment where a guest discussed Meghan's influence on modern celebrity culture.
What?
It lasted less than 2 minutes on air, but rippled across platforms for days. Clips were replayed, dissected, and shared under different captions.
And he's probably thinking, we can make a lot more money if, but they're not supposed to make any money off of being a member of the royal family, and yet they've trademarked apparently sort of their brand, Duke and Duchess of Sussex.
Each version adding new angles and new assumptions. Observers quickly pointed out how easily speculation around Meghan becomes self-sustaining. Her name alone turns casual discussion into trending content. Analysts studying online behavior often cite her as the ultimate example of what they call celebrity amplification. Once a narrative begins, every repost, every reaction, and every refusal to comment only strengthens its momentum. Whether the midnight call truly happened almost became irrelevant. The story itself, half rumor, half reflection of her complex relationship with fame, was already shaping public opinion. People weren't asking for evidence, they were asking what it meant. And in that sense, the event, real or imagined, served a larger purpose. It reignited the same question that has followed Meghan since her royal departure. How much control does any public figure truly have once their name belongs to the internet? By the following morning, what began as a whispered rumor had turned into a full-scale media conversation. Blogs, talk shows, and social media accounts were all asking the same question. Did Meghan really call Joe Rogan's team? No one could prove it, but the absence of confirmation only deepened the intrigue. When information is scarce, interpretation becomes entertainment. Entertainment editors scrambled to verify the claim. Some cited sources familiar with podcast operations, while others admitted off-record that no one inside Spotify was willing to speak. A senior journalist at The Hollywood Reporter described the situation as a vacuum that fills itself. Every hour without an update allowed another headline to appear, each one slightly more confident than the last. For media analysts, the pattern was textbook. In the age of algorithmic news, a rumor involving two globally recognizable names, Meghan Markle and Joe Rogan, was destined to multiply. Their audiences were different, even ideological opposites, but that made the collision irresistible.
Money off of the royal family, so they're given allotments, allowances, living expenses.
How much?
It's a significant amount. Look, they've got a house on the grounds of Windsor Castle they're going to continue to live in. So I guess here's my point. They can do whatever.
One communication strategist compared it to a digital chemical reaction. Two brands with opposite energies combining to create heat that neither intended. Inside Meghan's circle, there was no official word. Publicists declined comment, which in itself became a story. Commentators speculated that she was taking advice to stay silent, a tactic that had often served her well. But silence in the modern news cycle reads like mystery. And mystery keeps people scrolling. Meanwhile, Rogan's name was trending again. Supporters praised his refusal to engage, calling it proof of authenticity. Detractors accused him of provoking controversy for attention. Neither group knew whether he had even heard of the alleged call. Yet the narrative had already written itself. A royal figure versus a rebellious broadcaster. Power meeting defiance. Academic observers began weighing in. A professor of media studies told The Guardian that the story's momentum showed how rumors now function as participatory storytelling. Online users weren't just reading updates, they were helping build them. Posts theorizing about who said what became mini episodes in a collective drama that needed no resolution to keep audiences engaged. By midweek, the phrase midnight call was being used as shorthand across entertainment coverage, not as a verified event, but as a symbol. It represented that blurred line between fact, perception, and digital mythology that defines modern celebrity life. Whether it happened or not no longer mattered as much as what it said about the culture surrounding her. Because every hour the story remained unresolved, it stopped being about Meghan Markle and Joe Rogan, and started being about the machine that turned speculation into spectacle, and that machine was still accelerating. As coverage evolved, something unusual happened. The focus slowly drifted away from Joe Rogan and toward Meghan herself. Commentators weren't debating whether the call had happened anymore. They were dissecting why people believed it could have.
So she found out on TV, but, they want to be financially independent. They trademarked the Duke and Duchess of Sussex in a variety of different ways, apparently, and she's going to go back to doing whatever she did. And
It's that little American hussies he's hooked up with.
The rumor, in its strange way, had become a reflection of her reputation. For years, Meghan Markle's image has lived at the crossroads of admiration and skepticism. To her supporters, she represents independence, a woman who left an ancient institution to define her own path. To her critics, she's the embodiment of overexposure, a figure who speaks about privacy while living in the center of the world's spotlight. That contradiction makes every story about her sound halfway plausible before anyone checks a source. A communications analyst told Deadline that the midnight call rumor spread so fast because it fit the narrative people already expected. When you have a celebrity known for taking control of their message, she explained, any story about her demanding control feels believable, even without proof. In that sense, the reaction said less about Meghan's behavior and more about the psychology of her audience. Observers also pointed to timing. The rumor arrived during a quiet period for the Sussex brand. No new projects, no public appearances, no official statements. In a vacuum of information, speculation thrives. When there's no new chapter, the internet writes one. And because Meghan's name carries emotional weight, connected to royalty, race, and reinvention, her silence becomes its own kind of statement. By midweek, editorial columns were framing the situation as a case study in modern mythmaking. Writers noted how social media blurs the line between journalism and fanfiction. A tweet from one commentator summed it up neatly. It doesn't matter if she called him. The story just needed her name. Inside entertainment circles, the phrase media fatigue began appearing again. A polite way of saying that the public's obsession with Meghan hasn't faded, only evolved. Where old gossip magazines once speculated about wardrobe choices or relationships, digital platforms now spin entire narratives around unseen events. The players have changed, but the appetite hasn't.
Wasn't there some speculation that she was on Epstein's yacht at one point in time? There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew way back in the day when she was like in her early 20s.
Wow.
That's the big distraction.
That's the big distraction.
By the end of the week, the so-called midnight call had become a metaphor, a symbol for how fragile the boundary is between celebrity action and collective imagination. Whether Meghan actually picked up a phone or not mattered less than what the world projected onto that possibility. In the end, the most revealing part of the story wasn't the alleged phone call itself, it was how fast everyone was willing to believe it. And that, observers said, might be Meghan Markle's real paradox. Even when she says nothing at all, she's still the center of the conversation. By the time the first weekend rolled around, the rumor had outgrown itself. The question was no longer whether Meghan Markle had called Joe Rogan's team, it was why she hadn't said anything at all. Her silence, as it often did, became the headline. Talk show panels debated her supposed media strategy, not her words. Commentators wondered aloud if remaining quiet was strength or avoidance. One network anchor put it bluntly. Every time she stays silent, people think she's plotting something. Every time she speaks, they say she's overexposed. It was a lose-lose dynamic, amplified by years of polarized coverage. Inside entertainment journalism, a quiet consensus was forming. The fascination with Meghan had become cyclical. Every 6 months, a new moment reignited the same conversation. Power, privacy, and perception. The midnight call rumor was simply the latest spark. What made it different was how cleanly it represented the divide. Half the internet called it nonsense. The other half swore it sounded exactly like something she'd do. For media scholars, this became a case study in what they call confirmation narrative. Once an audience believes a certain version of a person, any new rumor feels like evidence. It's not about truth, it's about reinforcement. Meghan's supporters see her as resilient, her critics see her as manipulative. The same story feeds both. Meanwhile, news outlets across the UK began rehashing older controversies for context. The Oprah interview, the Netflix series, past royal tensions, each was framed as part of a pattern. But to many observers, that repetition revealed more about the press than about Meghan. When you run out of new information, one columnist wrote, you recycle the mythology. Still, her name guaranteed clicks, and outlets knew it. Even reputable publications that normally avoided speculation began weighing in. Some ran balanced op-eds, analyzing how rumors about women in power tend to be treated differently. Others leaned into the drama. The Duchess and the Podcaster, one front-page caption read, as though it were the title of a miniseries. But beneath the noise, a subtler story was forming about exhaustion. Even among her critics, there was a sense of fatigue. How many times could the same themes replay? Royal duty, media control, fame, and fallout. It was a pattern with no resolution, just endless interpretation. And yet, the rumor's endurance proved something larger. Meghan Markle had become more than a public figure. She was a recurring cultural event. Each new controversy, real or imagined, reset the clock on a conversation that never seemed to end. The midnight call might never have happened. But it didn't have to. The reaction alone said everything about how fame works in the 21st century. Weeks later, the midnight call story had mostly vanished from trending feeds. No confirmations ever surfaced, and no follow-up statements were released. The digital world had already moved on to something new, but the conversation it started didn't disappear. It simply shifted into background noise, the kind that hums beneath every headline about Meghan Markle. Commentators began to treat the episode as a cultural mirror. Not proof of an event, but evidence of a pattern. How quickly speculation can evolve into shared belief. One British columnist described it as a ghost of a story. Everyone sees its outline, but no one knows if it ever existed. The observation captured something essential about modern fame. Truth now competes not with lies, but with engagement. For media researchers, the rumor became a case study. Its rise and quiet fade showed how the news cycle rewards heat over accuracy. A claim without confirmation can generate the same traction as a verified scoop, provided the characters are familiar and the conflict feels real. Meghan and Rogan were perfect opposites in that sense. Royalty and rebellion, composure and chaos, two symbols that needed no context to spark curiosity. Meanwhile, Meghan herself remained offstage. No comments, no corrections, no rebuttals. Some called that restraint, others called it strategy. Her advocates argued that engaging with gossip only fuels it, while critics insisted that silence leaves too much space for invention. Either way, her absence reinforced a point few wanted to admit. Even when she does nothing, she moves the conversation. By the end of the month, long-form features began reframing her story entirely. Analysts wrote about media endurance, the ability of certain names to survive endless reinvention. Meghan's narrative, they said, had entered a stage reserved for icons and lightning rods alike, permanently relevant, perpetually contested. Whether loved or loathed, she remained impossible to ignore. And that, perhaps, is the real revelation. The midnight call rumor may never be proven, but it exposed how fragile the boundary is between public curiosity and public judgment. It showed that in the digital age, silence can sound louder than speech, and absence can feel like action. The call that may or may not have happened became a metaphor for everything else. The endless tension between control and chaos that defines modern celebrity. Because in the end, it was never about a phone call. It was about the echo that followed, the collective fascination with a figure who, even without speaking, commands the world's attention. If you've followed this story, stay tuned, because the next time a rumor like this surfaces, the question won't be whether it's true. It'll be what it says about us for believing it. Subscribe so you don't miss when the next echo begins.